to just kind of remember, I probably need to create a new worksheet where we start with this, right? We have like, our database. We can imagine like that this database, right, came from our RDS, meaning like our transactional database, okay? And then we move that data into Snowflake, right? So we have like a bunch of tables here already. Other things that will, but this is just one source of our data, right? Like, this is what connects to our website, and we save data. But you can imagine that, like, if you think about my website, right? Like, if you go to Jigsaw Labs, yeah, like I have a website, and let's pretend it also has a database, and we store some data. But then also, you click on Let's Talk, and well, this isn't you see this HubSpot stuff, right? Or this connects to Calendly, which actually connects to HubSpot. So like this isn't stored in my database. Like if you click and like put in your customer info, like none of that's stored directly in the RDS database. It's stored in HubSpot, you know? And then, when you click around and do stuff, I don't know if I can, let's see. Sorry. Oh, let's try this again. Like before you even log in, well, I have other information like that tells me like who's, I guess ideally like clicking around, all right, and so you can see this was just me, and this is Mixpanel data, right? And if I have some customer information like these users, ideally one day we would love to link them up, and say okay, like people that actually like came to the course, they started by clicking around here and they visited the free curriculum, and then they clicked on the course details, and then eventually they became like a good applicant and they signed up and they paid, right? So it's like we want to see the customer journey, and then the other thing is we also just get different information from different places, like Windows versus Mac, iOS, right? Like I can some maybe this is immediately tracking the location of the user, but I don't ask for that here. Like I don't think I asked for like what city you're in. So when I get like a customer profile in my database, some of the information is going to come from here. Some of the information I get to add in from here. Some of the information we get to add in from the RDS, the database that backs this website. So it comes from different sources, and we would like to tie this data together. All right, and that's kind of like the workflow that we're building towards. And to do something like that, let me see. Yeah, okay. So to do something like that, you can kind of see this. This is what this is illustrating. Is that you have this different source data, right, from these different SaaS tools, and you would like to move this data into your database, and then you want DBT to do the work of kind of merging and cleaning this data, so that ultimately we can get to a data mart. This is obviously a lot simpler. If we just have 5 tables, then you can imagine, data that's coming from all this stuff. So what happens is, you can kind of see this. Let me see this a little bigger. Each of these are different kind of sources, right? Let's see if I can make this bigger. All right. So this is like HubSpot, data that would come from HubSpot, data that might come from Stripe, data that might come from Facebook, right? And we start off with all this data in our Snowflake or analytical database. That's called like our source data, right? And that, an example of that is just literally like these tables, right? This is one source, and this is from my RDS. Okay, you can imagine that we will eventually load in other sources like data from HubSpot. All right, and that will just be in the same database but in a different schema. So, okay, so that's one. Each set of tables, right, would be under one source. When you get that data, like if we do like select all from customers, limit to. Let's put this in. Do this. Okay. So when you get this data, we can see like, okay, we have the customer ID here, we have the company name, we have the contact name, contact title, uh, the phone, some of the information, like something like, it's only somewhat clean, right? Like maybe I would want like the contact name, maybe I want that to split up into like first name and last name. In terms of the company name, right, that probably should relate to a company's table. So maybe I want the company ID stored here, right? So just immediately you can see that we're going to want to clean up this source data. And then maybe we don't need all the columns, right? Like maybe this goes in a separate table, the location, the contact information. Maybe we have a separate table for this. So, with this part, this is called staging, all right, where we start to just do some light cleaning of the data, all right, meaning that, we'll start to like, maybe we'll rename some of the column names, maybe we'll split the first name into, that full name into first name, last name, maybe we'll only select some of the columns and not others, like maybe we won't select the company name eventually. All right, so we'll start to just select the data we want into some new tables, and do some light cleaning and rename some of the columns, things like that. Okay, so staging is just where you start to clean up the data. And we will literally, it's not so hard with DBT. You'll see that we'll just create new tables or views of these staging tables. And then finally, if you think that we have, we cleaned up our HubSpot data, we cleaned up our Stripe data, we cleaned up our RDS data, right? So now we have user information from HubSpot, we have user information from Stripe, we have user information from our RDS. Like I kind of have alluded to, right? We're going to want to merge that data, right? We're going to want to make sure that we have the location data that comes from HubSpot or whatever it was, Mixpanel, and we have, whatever else we're tracking, like maybe the course preference that's coming from our RDS, and we have, I don't know what from Stripe, but, if there's something that we need from Stripe, did they pay, let's say, something like that, all right? But we need to, associate all this data together, right? We need to integrate, right? And that's this last stage, the data from these different sources, okay? So you can see while this might have a users table, and this would also have a users table, and this would have a users table, at the integration stage, we're winding up with just one users table. All right, so we're combining that data. And then finally, we need to finally get and you'll see this when we get to the March stage, it's you'll need to have all the foreign keys set, right? That relates users with, user maybe has many projects or a user belongs to a company, things like that. That's the March stage. This is what third parties, internal stakeholders, will select from, okay? They'll select from your marks. So this is the final form of the data. Lots of times there's not a lot of work to be done here. There's some work to be done in staging. There's a lot of work to be done in integration. That's normally how it works, okay? So each one of these, like I said, you can imagine is a separate schema that you can see. All right. And that's what we'll be moving through. So it is okay, we get this messy data, we start cleaning it up individually, then we start combining the data, and then we get the final form of the data. Questions about that? This is the progression that we'll be moving through. All right. So let's start to see this. You can see I selected from here, this customers table. And really what we want to do is, move this into DBT, right? And I'll see some of the benefits of DBT. So what I can do is, right now I'm on the main branch. See that? Main. And it also says read only, right? Just like what DB2 is doing, it's connecting to a GitHub repository that once we created, I forget if it was start project or create repository, it creates this kind of skeleton for us immediately. If you go on examples, you can see it also has, this is mine, right? It also has some like, we can figure out what this means later, but it has some sample examples. All right, so what we want to do is go from this main branch and create a new branch, because just like with GitHub, right, we're not supposed to actually directly make commits on the main branch. You're supposed to create a new branch and then, push up, make your commits, push it, and then merge them to the main branch. That's what we want to do. So let's change our branch. Can I create a new branch? Man. Oh, create a branch. Okay. So all I did was I just had to click on this button. So I'll do create branch, and let's call this like, add customers staging. And click submit. So we created a new branch off of master, or off of main, and now we should be able to change branch to add customers staging. Oh, and we're already there. Oh, there we are. Add customer staging. Great. Okay, let's get rid of these examples. I don't think we need them. And we'll create a new folder called staging. Okay. So we have this folder called staging, and then we'll create a new file called, what will it be called? I think it's like add. Let's call this stage customers.sql. Okay. And what we should be able to do is, to start, we can just copy this over and run this. Like I said, I don't think you need the semicolons in DBT. Now let's just see if we can run this. All right, so here's our people. All right, we're just selecting all the columns from now. But what you can imagine we want to do is we want to, let's try to split the name into first name and last name. I think we also, I'll see what I did in the lab. I think we probably still want, the customer ID would make sense, the country, and we'll do first name and last name. So let's do that. So we'll do select customer ID. We'll do the full name for now. We'll update this in a second. Contact name. And the country, I believe. All right. So these are going to be our columns. Let's click save, and we'll do preview. Now, with DBT, oftentimes what we want to do is we actually want to make the code like modular, meaning it's almost like functions, like these little steps. We really lean on like CTEs. So if you remember that, it's like we can call it customers. Last time we'll call it like renamed as, and then we'll put a select here, right? So remember, this is a CTE, which means a common table expression. Let me see if I can make this bigger. And what we're doing is we're basically creating a temporary table, and now we can select all from renamed and just make sure this works and save it. And then let's preview. Okay, so we're still good. And then one other thing we like to do with the CTE is this part right here. Oftentimes the format is you'll do with source as, and then we'll put the table name here, select all from customers table, and then finally we will select this thing from source. So first of all, what are we doing? So what we're doing is we're saying I'm going to call this table source, and then I'm just going to select from the source table. Okay? Why do we do that? These files can get kind of long, and what we want to do is specify our dependencies up top so you can see, hey, these are the tables we're going to be using when you read this file. All right, we're going to be using this customers table. All right, so this is pretty equivalent to like at the top of a Python file, you have the import statement. right? So you can say, hey, this is what this file is about, right? This is what you need to like out external to this file. This is what you may want to pay attention to. We're doing the same thing here. We're just saying, hey, like we're going to be using this table here, and you can, that's what you should know before you start reading the rest of this file. Let's make sure this still works. So notice right now I'm selecting from source. Source looks like it's almost a keyword. I wonder if I should say SRC, but it's all right. I'm going to say SRC because I don't like the fact that it's blue. And then now notice we still did not like clean any of our data. So we need to finally, let's move this into separate columns. So that's just some SQL. So that'll be split part on a space, and then one as first name. Let's make sure that works. So we're just splitting on a space, selecting the first element. I must have messed it up. So it says unexpected number 1. Split part, contact name. Maybe it doesn't want the double quotes. Syntax line 1. One thing you can do, let's see how this was compiled. Raw code, limit 500. If we look, let's see how this was compiled. So the DBT is translating the code into this. Select customer ID, split part, contact name as first name. Yeah, country. That looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna look. Select customer ID. I don't see it. Let me see if this works in Snowflake. So we have our contact name. I might have the wrong. Select contact name, and then let's change this. Just select the contact name, and let's do split part contact name, comma 1 as first name. Oh, so it does not like this. Yes, Sonia?
I'm seeing in a Stack Overflow that you need to have parentheses starting at split and ending after the alias. So select parenthesis, split part, all of that, and then ending at as first name.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's all. Yeah, that's all good. So it's second parenthesis after first name.
Yeah, this is working in Snowflake.
Oh.
So I wonder.
Oh.
So it seemed like the main thing I had to change is to change this to single quotes. So I wonder if this works in DBT, right? So notice what I did, just so you can see that with debugging, right? I moved over to Snowflake, and there it was more descriptive, the error message. So when I press play here, see that it says invalid identifier. This looks like the double quotes, right? So now I get a nice little hint of what's going wrong. And then let's press play. It looks good. And let's just see if that, if changing to single quotes works in DBT. See that? I'll preview. And maybe it doesn't. Okay, cool. So here's our first name. Then we'll do the same thing, but we'll do last name. You can do this 2 ways, but I would we could do split part again. I could do 2. I would not, because what if they have a middle name? So instead I would do the -1, right? Give us for the last name. right? Like if I want the last name, it's always probably going to be the last word, unless I can't think of a reason why not. Unless maybe there's a junior or senior, like a salutation or whatever they call it at the end. This looks good. So first name, last name, country. That's good for now. Okay, so this will be our first kind of staging table. Messed something up. Unexpected, country. I need a comma here. So this will be our first staging table. Now, right now, all we're doing is we're just previewing the data. Okay, we're not actually changing anything in our database. So we can actually alter our database. Like we can write to our Snowflake database and have this result be created as a new view. We can talk about what that is. But we can have this result be created as a new view in Snowflake. And the way to do that is if we see this thing over here, we can do dbt run. And you can also do dash select, and then the name of the model. So this thing right here is called a model, and the model is stage customers. There's no SQL on the end of it, I don't believe. Did I mess something up? Did I delete something? Unexpected. All right, so let's take a look at this. We can see, if we look at details right here, we can see what was actually run here. So it's going through these steps. This is kind of a mess right here. You don't really need to focus on that. What I focus on is here. This is really the query right here. So I clicked on details, and then I wanted to see what was the actual SQL that was being written. Okay, so you can see it's creating or replacing a view, Fivetran database, dbt Jeff, stage customers, as, and now here's my CTE, select all, and I wonder if I can get my error message. So it's complaining about position line 4, unexpected country. All right, let's take a look at that. Last name, select, customer name, first name, last name.
Do you need to save the query or you read it?
That might be it.
Yeah.
Thank you. That might have taken some time. All right, let's try this again. I think you can. So you see what I did? I clicked on this ups thing, and that will show you the history of what was run. And then let's click rerun. So now it's creating a new run of this. And that one ran successfully. So again, we can look at this. You can see that we have the green light. And then I always like to look at details to see what was actually run here. Right? And again, I scroll down until I start to see my query. And you can see that it created a view in dbt Jeff stage customers. So now let's go there. Let's go to Snowflake. We can go to, I think it's under Fivetran database, dbt Jeff, because I changed it. Let's refresh this. Here it is, dbt Jeff. And then here's my view, stage customers. All right. And then you can place the name in the editor if you want. And select all from this. All right, so just to make sure, and to look. Okay, so now we have this new table, or really a view, where now we have our data split. We've done some light cleaning of the data. All right, so we've changed our database. The last thing to do is just commit this, push this up to GitHub. Let's say add stage customers and separate first and last name. And commit the changes. And now finally, you can see, remember what we did is right now have this file on the separate branch, but we need to merge that branch to the main branch. So we can just click this button to merge it to the main branch. So this is merging the code, right? So even though we've, created, we like made our changes in Snowflake, we want other users to have the same code. So now we have it, and you can see here's our same file, and that is in the main branch. All right, so this is like, that's like step one, right? That's like the first thing, right? Is just clean up some of the data. All right, so things that you kind of saw, right? Obviously, you have to move to a different branch using the preview, right? Then doing this dbt run -- select the model name. After doing that, like I said, I always like to click on details to see the actual code that was run. Another way you can do that is clicking on compiled code. It doesn't give it as fully, like it doesn't, it gives, this thing. So you can see that it adds in this limit 500. It gives you the code for the preview. But to actually see what was run against your database, that you have to run it and then click on details. Other things we saw was, the structure, right? You can see like you have multiple CTEs, right? The first one lists the source, like what are we going to essentially be importing and using for this file, right? So you say, okay, this is my source table. You may also call it like source customers, but when there's just one, you can call it source. And then this is my logical CTE, right? So this is where a lot of the work is done. And then finally, we select from this last guy. This is something I mess up a lot, is sometimes I'll be like, I'll select accidentally from source instead of from renamed. And I'll be like, why did nothing happen, right? It's because nothing happened here. We need to select all from the last CTE. Okay. All right. I mean, that's mainly what I wanted to cover. Questions about any of this? Okay. You guys, are you all feeling okay with this? It's not so bad. It's like just learn the tooling. Yeah, Serge.
So the staging, like these files in the staging folder, is it better to save them in the same database in Snowflake where your OLTP is, or maybe a different database?
It's not where your OLTP is, right? It's where we are in our analytical database, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you want to use a different database, like you can, right? But remember that I think most people keep it. I don't know. Like maybe we can ask some of the analytics engineers here, but at least like the way I've seen it like recommended is that you'll keep it in the same database, just so you can see this. And if you want to switch that, I can show you, how to do that. You just have to go to your settings essentially. And then here you click on Partner Connect Trial, and then this is where it's getting set. All right. Fivetran database. This is my, where's this? Doesn't it have the schema? Here's the schema. Okay. So this is why we're creating new views in this database under this schema. Notice that the schema is, my name, right? This is so that when I make changes, like if say I mess something up, like I can do something safely, essentially under my own folder. All right, it doesn't affect anybody else's environment because they're all working under their schema. And then finally, when you get to like the March stage, or when your changes are correct and good, then you can have like a schema for production. All right, which eventually you can that would be shared, right, by other users as well. But here you're essentially getting your own development environment, which is just a schema. So all my changes would be made under my own schema. All right, and that's why, when we created this thing, you can see it was made under dbt Jeff. Okay. Yeah, Sina?
Yeah, and just to add on to that, you can it's really easy in DBT to configure like multiple schemas. So like if it was getting like too crowded,
Yeah, you can
that's
create a
one thing
new
that's
one,
easy.
right, and change it. Yeah. So this is just like kind of like your own personal Scratchpad or a play sandbox. And then, you want to use it like the same way you would use to like your console. And then eventually you can merge that. You can, move that into production. You have a production schema where your changes are moved over to be shared by other developers. All right. We'll get into like production later on. Other things to talk about? I think that's it. You can see what we'll be moving through is the staging. Let's talk about sources just briefly. What you can do. So currently we're selecting from directly. Let's take a look. Currently we're selecting directly from this database name. All right. And we generally, it's a good thing to like not do that, right? This is an external dependency, right? It's based directly on Snowflake. If we ever change the database, if we change the schema that we want to select from, if this data, we want to have it come from a different schema, like that can be a little tricky. We'd have to change this code, all right, to do that. So, and you'd have to basically search through your whole code base to find everywhere this thing is used and then change it. So what's recommended to do is to create instead a sources.yaml file. I guess I have to create a new branch. That's fine. Sources. All right, so we are now on this add customer source branch, and inside the staging folder, we'll create a new file called sources.yaml. All right, sources.yaml. And now here, what we'll do is essentially this information that we have here, right? We're going to move it to the sources.yaml file. So you can see how I do that. Right, this is the version that we're using of like the DBT API. And then we're saying, okay, this is the data. Let's make sure this is right. The database name, I don't think is right. It's Fivetran database. Oh no, this is the name of the source that we'll be referencing. It comes from the Fivetran database. The table name is customers. All right. And then this is the schema name. Yes, Sina?
I think it's the YAML without the A. For whatever reason. DBT did that.
That might be right. All right, let's try it. .yml. I wonder if it matters. And then once we have this source set up, what we'll do is we'll reference it. Okay. So if we reference, here's the name, and then here's the table. All right. And we can replace this right here with, and the name was RDS customers. And I'll explain this, what I'm doing in a second. Let's just make sure it works. Source is undefined. Is it not source?
I thought YAML files use double quotes.
I don't think it's that. Let me just say, it doesn't think that. Oh, this is why. I'm using the wrong name for the function. It's SOURCE. Sorry about that, gang. Okay, this is better. See that? I was doing SRC. That is, and you can see it with the error message. Source is undefined. Okay? This can happen when calling a macro that does not exist. So this thing is an example of like a DBT macro. What it is it is literally a Python function that is being that DBT has written for us to look at our sources and translate this into our original table name and schema, right, and database. So let's take a look. So now we're back to green, right? Things are working here. And if you look at the compiled code, you see this? This is what it translated this into. So it said, okay, this source RDS customers, we are looking at RDS and customers, and I know to translate that into Fivetrain database.postgres.customers. All right. Now, how can we go directly into using like a Python function here? It's because of these double brackets. All right. This is Jinja, a little bit of Jinja. And what you're saying is, okay, this part's SQL, this part is Python. And we are going to be using an out-of-the-box DBT function in order to select from our table. If you look at the lineage, damn. Do I have to save this? Okay, there we go. I had to save it. But now if you look at the lineage, you can see that in order to make the staging customers model, we are now depending on RDS customers. All right? So that's good to know, right? Because it means like if something happens to this table, it's going to affect downstream the stage customers. And DBT is showing us that out of the box. All right. So there's a, the sources when you get to it isn't so bad. I know I went through it kind of quickly, but it's also not super complicated, I don't believe. All right, so this is but the word is source for the functioning. All right, let me stop talking and I'll let you all